Welcome back, guys. If you're new here, my name is Josh. I'm a book reviewer, reviewing all types of books such as book talk, sci-fi, fiction, non-fiction. Anything that comes across my way that I find interesting, I pick up and I review it. But if you were here from the previous video, you will know exactly what today is about. It's about this, the strength of the few. Now, before I get into anything else, I first want to start with my expectations for this book. If you could tell, or you couldn't tell from the previous video, I was really into The Will of the Many for a various amounts of reasons, which I gave, basically. I mean, I didn't really have a lot of expectations for this book, but I knew going into it, it was going to expand on where the first book left off. And that kind of sounds stupid to say out loud, because obviously the second book is going to keep the story going. If you read The Will of the Many, you would know. But I mean, I didn't know if we're going to get more details about the worlds, or if this book is going to be like centered around one copy of Viz. Is it going to center around another copy, perhaps in another world? All those like different avenues that James could have gone. I didn't even think about. Though I do think the only thing that I really wanted to see was a continuation of Prime Viz, basically. The one that we got to experience for about 400 pages in The Will of the Many before that ending, and see how he would continue his work, continue his mission and continue his fight for his fallen friends, for against Veritas, for Alcisa, without an arm, and all those complications. I wanted to see him live. Because seeing as that we got like an entire book dedicated to this version of Viz, that was my main expectation. Seeing him continue on that journey and knowing what happens next for him. Now, first and foremost, did I enjoy it? And how does it stack up against book one? So to answer the first question, did I enjoy it? Absolutely. I'm a big fan of James Easelton. I've only read The Will of the Many, so you can take this with a pinch of salt because he does have a whole other series as well. But I'm a bigger fan of The Will of the Many. James Easelton's work there, to me, is amazing. Again, I'm a big Percy Jackson fan, and to know that Rick Riordan is also advocating on multiple fronts and multiple outlets. But did I enjoy it? Yes. Does it stack up to book one? I actually rarely think book twos ever really stack up to book one, actually. Book one needs to be so amazing that you are invested in the series enough to go and purchase the second book. Book one always kind of needs to be the best work an author can give, in a way, especially because it gets you into the series. Was it better? No, I wouldn't say it was better than The Will of the Many. For The Will of the Many was simplistic. It was a singular character moving from point A to point B, and the story never got complicated enough to kind of discourage you or take you away from what was important, which was Viz. And obviously getting towards the end and seeing how everything and all the different plot lines came together and tied into this magical, complex system where you suddenly have 3 Vizes and 3 worlds, and you don't even know what is going on. That obviously introduces the complexity that this book has to now fight. So obviously, I don't think it was as good. If that was a 10 out of 10, then this is obviously a 9 out of 10. So obviously, it just came out, so you won't actually get many versions of The Strength of the Few. You are unaware there is 2 versions of The Will of the Many. There's kind of this one which features almost like the sci-fi looking environment on the front page. And then there's also the other version, which I have. So obviously you've got this here in the front, the creatures from one of the worlds. Actually, now that I think about it, the cover features Obatum, actually, yes, if that's how you pronounce it. But the cover features Obatum and the enemies from Obatum as well, which is very, maybe that is a clue, maybe it isn't, but for whatever reason, Obatum gets some spotlight. And it's quite a beautiful book, I won't lie. I would totally get it just as this as well. As much as I'm a lover of special editions, it is a totally beautiful book. There are 3 Vizes now, and each of these Vizes are in a different world. So you would know if you read at the end of the Will of the Many that from the excursion that Viz did, going through the labyrinth, getting to the other side, getting knocked out, and then coming all the way back, surviving. During that whole process, there was a part where once you got through the labyrinth, you entered this synchronous process in which the ruins, the labyrinth, the magic, and that is behind the world that they don't understand, that we don't really understand as well at that point, kind of fractures Viz, not fractures, but copies him identically across 3 worlds. But all versions of him live alternatively but independently as well. So each world is different. It's not exactly the same copy, but each Viz is also different. So immediately what you understand is that the Viz that we have followed in the Will of the Many has his account of the events, but the other Vizes don't, because they weren't there for the ending. You know, for seeing Amissa stab him, seeing Claudius die, seeing Viz actually win the Indictum. All those things they're unaware of because they aren't experiencing the exact same events or in the exact same world as Viz. And that was kind of something that took getting used to. It was not like good indicator to say, okay, we're in this world now or that world. And I'm not really a symbols person because I know there is symbols. Like I mentioned, there is like 3 identifying symbols to kind of tell you which world you're in. But you could tell it was going to be a big challenge for James to somehow tell a story where the main character is tripled, all living independently across 3 entirely new environments. Especially when the magic system is expanding as well. It's not changing. Will is still there. Will is in every single world. And it's obviously used in ways that Viz has been trained to use it in the primary world. But they're expanded, the things you can do across the world is expanded as well. So it's almost like adding a whole different set of abilities and creativity to a system that you would think you have like a grasp on, that Will is used to imbue objects, so they can use it for traveling, they use it for fighting, etc., etc. So to kind of like just take all of that in and realize that, okay, James has to deal with all of that and then still kind of tell us the story that's going to make us interested, invested, and enjoy it to the point that we're going to want to continue the series for the 3rd book was always going to be a challenge. So I think also that's where it took me a second. Like in the beginning of the book, I kind of had to read basically the first chapter. I had to read like the first chapter or the first few lines. You kind of get a sense of what world you're in by the language used. Obviously, each world has its own language, its identifiers, names for cities, etc., characters that are unique to different worlds, as well as the fact that some of the Vizes, while they were going through different challenges on the different worlds, even though they were entirely unique, they would all sometimes had these moments where 2 of them would sync up. Like they would remember their dad, but both of them would share the same memory. So it was almost like, oh, are you reading the same chapter again almost? But no, basically, both of the 2 Vizes were experiencing something each individually in their own world that was now suddenly reminding them of the same memory. But it was kind of interesting to kind of have to read that and get used to the fact that you're jumping between worlds. There is no like particular pattern that I could see that the way you jump between worlds, you start in one, you jump to the next one, you maybe do like 2 or 3 chapters there. Though I do think I'm going to have to reread it eventually if I want to get, especially before the 3rd book comes, if I really want to understand now knowing how it ends, and just to like read everything I've missed. Because when you read books like this, which is, by the way, I think 200 pages more than the Will of the Many. Like usually the 2nd book is shorter than the 1st book. And this is usually like a story where you are constantly getting information. You're constantly trying to solve like mysteries and etc. But you're getting key information that doesn't really make sense unless you have the ending in hand. Same thing with the Will of the Many. And now that I do have the ending, like I've actually clocked the ending, I do think that's going to probably help me a lot more to understand what the rest happened again. So I'm actually looking forward to the reread. But to give you a summary, the 3 Vizes are copied over to each individual worlds. Rez, Lucian, and Obatum. 2 of the Vizes have lost arms. One of them has not. So it's kind of like an easy identifier. And then each one of them kind of has to survive in their world. So obviously, Rez, which is the primary viz that we've got in Will of the Many, he has to do with the fallout of what had happened at the academy, what is happening in the society. The three branches of the Senate, governance, military, and religion, are combating, they're fracturing in terms of political relations. Not yet physical, not yet actual war, but it's kind of you're kind of inclined to think that okay, it's going that direction, and Viz now needs to walk that line while still dealing with Lucia and the rest of the Angus, the guy that he met at his at the end of the Will of the Many, and he needs to do that while simultaneously figuring out what exactly Veritas is doing, what exactly happened to him at the Synchronous, at the Labyrinth, and how this is all affecting what is happening in his world. In Lucian, it is a world that's almost sort of, I would link it almost to like a Viking-esque world. Like if you ever watched Viking shows, you know that you get like your Viking or your medieval shows, you get like your villages. You don't really get cities. We're not at that point yet in that world, but it's a lot more laid back. It's not as advanced, and there's different the mannerisms in which people carry themselves. It's almost like kings, queens, armies, almost like Norse elements in Lucian. There's a lot harsher world in a weird way. The from Riz in that they don't use will in the sense that they do. Each world uses will differently, and now Viz has no way of knowing what is happening. He doesn't understand the people that he meets. He doesn't understand what is happening as well. And this Viz in Lucian as well lost his arm by having the labyrinth basically suck it off, or obliterated, basically, because he was just standing there by the labyrinth at the end of the Will of the Many, trying to go back once Viz went back already. And this caused the labyrinth to rise again and be in the way without him being able to control it. And the only way he could get through was by putting his hands on the labyrinth, and this ultimately decimated his arm, so that these two Vizes don't have arms now, the one in Lucian and Rez. So he's kind of also got to learn how to do all that, because he didn't have like the medicine or the technology that primary Viz has. Well, I keep calling them primary Viz, but Rez Viz, but primary Viz has. And then Obatum Viz is aware of what is happening, because he has something that's already been through some of the stuff. Kara, Alcice's brother, that he meets at the end of Will of the Many, and he basically is indoctrinated into the mission that him and Veritas have been doing all this time and been trying to figure out. They've been trying to defeat this enemy, which is apparently a multi-Earth enemy, because it spans across all three. So he is a threat to every single planet, and he is, in this visit, is aware of everything that's happened up until this point. He is aware that he's on another world. He is aware that there is a version of him on the other two worlds, and he is aware that if he doesn't stop this enemy from achieving his goals or halting him in any type of way, or killing him, in fact, because I think that is the main goal, is to actually kill him, then all three worlds are in trouble and another cataclysm can happen. Now, obviously, it is a complicated story, like extremely complicated. But once I actually was able to grasp the inner workings of each world and know that, okay, we're now in this world and that world and etc., and this is what's happening, it wasn't actually that hard to follow the storyline of the different visits. And I think that's obviously credit to James Easelton and how he wrote it. The fact that I can now read it and easily follow which viz is doing what. But to start off with primary viz or res viz, James, I'm gonna have to like track you down or something, because the ending. Okay, so this Viz goes through a lot anyway. He's lost his arm, he got stabbed by Nissa, and then now that he's in a position of power, now he's in a position of actually being able to detach himself from Alcice, detach himself from Veritas in a way that he can now act on his own, without having to rely on anybody specifically or take orders under the threat of, then him being killed or him being tied to a zapper. He is now able to go on and do what he wants, which is to investigate and to kind of avenge Claudius. But for him to now go and fight and be a politician and investigate all these different things and still have to, you don't think it can get any worse compared to the other worlds, because the other worlds are a lot harsher than Res. But for him to do all that and then still basically be powerless, the death of Acquia, for example, made me pause and really take a minute, because the way she died, and the fact that you as the reader have this belief that obviously James on purpose put there, but that Viz is capable of always thinking himself out of the situation. Now that he has the abilities to and the strength to combat a lot of the physical challenges. And obviously he is fit because he did go to the academy. He has trained for a good part of 6 months, ignoring everything else in his past as a prince. You are always under the impression that he has the ability to think himself and get himself out of sticky situations. And to see Acquia die in such a way blew my mind, to say the least. The other things from Res that blew my mind was the fact that he ended up breaking his 2 legs and he had to just continually go on with like that. The addition of Diego with him in society as well. I do think that there is a bigger play with Diego. I think Diego is going to be super important in the 3rd book, because, wow, the fact that Diego is supposed to be the Salupai that doesn't obey anything, not even Viz, and now he's with Viz in Caton, in society itself, and to see him kill people when Viz is conflicted makes me think that there is a connection there. And I've seen theories, because I did do a deep dive on Reddit for it, but I can't wait for that to actually be explained in book 3. So I actually had to quickly check this. So if you didn't know, that the books actually come with little like glossary of like characters, the location, the words, etc. So if you do ever like lose yourself or forget things, it is here. But I had to just quickly open it to get the name of Ostius, man that Viz meets at the end of the Will of the Many, where before he gets stabbed by Emissa, and before he goes and he confronts the man that's guarding the heart of Joven. He meets the Angus leader, the one that Radusha was talking to, that also has the same power as Melia. And to figure out that Ostius is the same as Viz, in a way that he is trying to combat what is happening to the worlds. He's trying to combat the greatest enemy, basically, that is to these 3 worlds, but in Res in such a way that he has these otherworldly abilities. Like, for whatever reason, and it's not actually explained in here, but Ostius has the power to do these things that other people can't. And he has, for example, one of the powers that he has, obviously besides the Melia power, where he can just look at things and then make them incinerate or explode with will. The other thing that he has is the ability to transport himself or teleport himself between Res and Lucian. And he does this to get around. So when you see him teleporting in and out of conversations, he is actually traveling to the other world and then traveling back. And this is how he gets into secure areas like the military meeting, the secret military meeting that happens. And it's how he gets past security and precautions put in place to stop the enemies, the Angus or whoever, from doing any damage. Because he can just teleport to the world, because all 3 worlds are identical in the fact that they are, Earth, for example. I don't know if they actually call it Earth, but they all are Earth. They've all developed in different ways, but this land is still land. If you go to Paris, you're still going to Paris in the other world. You're just not going to see the Eiffel Tower, maybe. Maybe they built a Colosseum in Paris. And to get a deeper understanding of the relations and how military is run, where Ostius comes from, in a sense, and the additions of how will can be used as well. The fact that Viz now can pull will from other people. Initially, it sounded more like a synchronous ability only, like only people that have been to other worlds could do. But then, at the same time, there's the moment in the military meeting where the other military leaders almost kind of pull their will back into them from objects. Prime Viz Resviz, and everything he goes to in the last few chapters, everything he goes to in this book, I have again no words for it, and no idea what could happen in book 3. And if you enjoyed this, please like, subscribe, let me know what you would like me to review, and until the next one.